Okay, this is the video where I'm supposed to talk about intense realism versus delusional. And as I told you guys before, in this video I might go into a lot of details and kind of diffuse a bit, and it might not necessarily take less than 10 minutes. It'll maybe go between 20 and 30. Hopefully not more than 30, because I don't want to get you guys bored. But this time is necessary because this is kind of like the self-help section and the improvement section of the video that's required, like in your holistic development as a grad school applicant. So getting back to intense realism and versus delusion, I think many people go through this phase where they were once very delusional and then they start becoming realists. And the other way around also happens sometimes. Hopefully not, actually. But I've noticed that sometimes people confuse what is being a realist and what is delusional. And they think that being a pessimistic person is being realist, and that delusional is being over optimistic. And or the other way around. I really don't know how to paraphrase it. But some people think that because they're optimistic, they're being realist because they want to achieve something that's just like very hard to do. Or by being, the whole thing about delusion is sometimes it's very hard to achieve something that's impossible. Hence, it is impossible to do. And, but no, you'll see who are like delusional, and they'll be like, no, but you know what, I'm going to do this. And they talk about it, that's the thing. Like, they just talk about it. They talk about it. The typical example, I'm going to go off of research for a while. I'm going to talk about money making. Typical example. You know what? We all have the friend. We all have, and I've been there once too. We all have the friend, right? It's like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to be rich. Sometimes it's the friends. It's like a lot of people. We're all going to be rich, I'm going to start making a lot of money, going to have my corporation, have a headquarters in LA, in Italy, in New Zealand, whatever, in Brazil, China. And they're like talking about this surreal and delusional idea of being billionaires and rich and this like living the good life, drinking, whatever, womanizing, partying, and all that. But at the end of the day, when you actually know these people and talk to them and you evaluate their day-by-day life, they don't do anything in a day that gets them closer to that objective. Like, they talk about being rich or being a millionaire, and the only thing they're doing all day is smoking weed or playing video games. Or partying, or drinking, or spending time with a girlfriend, or just like being lazy. They're not doing anything to actually get themselves close to the goal. Yet they think, because they think in this sorry for this word, they think in this whole law of attraction bullshit that miraculously they're going to receive $1 million from the sky. Because if they believe in it and think about it, it's going to happen. No, it's like that's not how the world works. It's like, I'm sorry, you're wrong. You're not going to get rich that way. That's not how reality works. Reality really just kicks you in the ass, and it just beats you in the face, and it's it kicks you and slaps you, and it puts you down constantly. So you evaluate what you're doing wrong. So people who don't see reality kind of are stuck in this delusion and this sense where they think that they're already champions or that they've already conquered life. Going back to the rich example, they talk about being rich and they also think that they're already rich, but they're not. Sometimes it's their parents' money, sometimes it's their friends' money, it's not even their money. So that's a big issue, that's a big problem, and you don't want to get too involved with these people. Sometimes they're your friends, sometimes they're people at your university, sometimes they're your professors. And you don't want to get involved with these people because they're showing you the wrong way of thinking. You want to be, and they might even tell you, no, you know what, dude, you got to be optimist. You got to think high. You got to set your aims high, because if not, you're going to you're gonna like stay in the system. You're gonna be like one of those other guys who just like have their every day off his job or blah 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 blah. They give you that BS, whatever, which is partially true. But they don't do anything to actually get out of the system. They're actually still inside the system. They think they're not, but they're still in when you look at them. So what is the intense realism approach? I remember learning about this because I read a book like written by 50 Cent or whatever, or like Robert Greene, but he interviewed 50 Cent about this, and it was like a self-help book that I read maybe like 4 years ago or 5 years ago. And he said something about intense realism, which is the fact that you have to be very aware of how reality and the world works, right? How is it that, going back to the rich example, how is it that if I want to be rich and have a multi-million corporation, what is the first step I should do? Okay, I should have an idea. All right. You have to work on that idea every day, at least 8 hours a day. You have to like be willing to not sleep to find that idea. Even if you don't find it, you have to go home, you have to work on it, whatever. Maybe it's an app, you program the app. You don't know how to program, you learn how to code, whatever. Maybe you're like, you want to start let's say like a lemonade business or whatever, or a hotel corporation. You have to do baby steps first, right? You can't start dreaming about owning like a Hilton franchise or whatever if you don't even know the basics of like business or economics or like how hotel businesses are run. If you don't know people who already own hotel businesses, so you have to like get into that environment too. You have to see the very high goal. That's what I call intense realism, and I think other people call it too. You have to see that very, very high goal that you have, and just like decompose it step by step to see what step you have to do in each block and the timing and how you're gonna accomplish that to get there. So in kind of like in getting rich, right? It's you have to find the first step is finding a business idea and getting into that business and exploiting that business, right? And not being delusional. For example, the case of there are degrees of richness, right? So there's being rich as in like having $1 million versus being rich as in having $1 billion. So what is delusional would be like, all right, I'm gonna be rich and have $1 billion franchise by actually any idea might not be that stupid. I was gonna say like selling pencils or post-its, but that might actually work. Thing is that maybe it might not work now because the market is oversaturated. Maybe it worked at the beginning, but so you want to like kind of like penetrate in the market with selling pencils. I really doubt that you could become a billionaire. Maybe you could. I'm extremely wrong if that's the case, but I think you might actually become maybe like a millionaire if you like start getting your small factories for pencils, like you find your forest, whatever, you cut the trees. I know that's bad for the environment, but just for the sake of the problem and this example, and you eventually like have your $1 million pencil business. But I don't think you can actually be a billionaire with pencils. But so the delusional approach is saying, yes, I will. I'm starting in this small town, by this small village in let's name a random city in Brazil. This random city in Brazil, and I'm starting out, and it's gonna be there, and I'm gonna be a millionaire by selling these new pencils. Like they're by Brazilian trees and everything, and you don't really. You actually say you have the stats from like the pencil market, and you see that even the best pencil companies have a roof at, let's say, 750 million for the sake of the problem a year. And you kind of like, you're a bit delusional if you think that you're actually going to be a billionaire by selling pencils from a small village in Brazil, right? So I'm like kind of thinking another way and say, okay, this won't work. You have to anticipate that problem too. So you have to say, this won't work. What can I do that will give me the $1 billion idea? So there is no easy answer for that, because if I'd have it, everyone would be a billionaire. But assume I kind of analyze what were the $1 billion ideas or companies that like revolutionized and changed like mankind. Stuff like Microsoft, Google, how like information is basically changing privacy and all that, and you can have any answer you want by just like Googling it. And I'll still have like small idea. I don't think they even expected to be like a $1 billion company that is now into like robotics and that type of stuff. Or how Facebook has now like just bought Oculus for $2 billion. I think they also bought Instagram for $1 billion, maybe 2 years ago. But I think that's really interesting to see how those trends that are completely innovative, completely different, that you kind of sense how they have and control an entire network of people around the world that have a higher value. And you analyze that and you say, okay, so if I want to get the $1 billion idea, I have to work in something similar. I don't think it's going to be like by selling pencils. So now try to apply that same thinking towards, let's say, alright, another popular self-help topic before I get into research. Attraction and couples. So, a famous thing, right? It would be like delusional to say, oh, alright, I'm this like chubby kid who plays video games all day, and I really hate myself, and I don't have any money, and blah 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 blah. You know, like a lot of just like negative stuff, right? But he's like, he read this law of attraction thing. He's like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna miraculously meet and marry the supermodel. You know, that's what I'm going for. All right, it's possible. I don't have nothing against this guy. There are cases when it happens. But the thing is, you also have to think, all right, what do these other people in the other side of the spectrum, put your side on the supermodel end, like, what do these type of women who do these type of women like go out with, right? Some of them are movie stars, entrepreneurs, athletes. They're really rich, really good looking. They have a lot of stuff. They're happy with themselves. That's actually the most important thing, like beyond money or like looks or whatever, just like being happy with yourself. I'm pretty sure those people are like actually really happy with themselves, regardless of how much they have or how much they say they're worth. I think they're really happy with themselves. And being delusional for our chubby kid, as an example, is if he just thinks about that all day and just doesn't do anything about it. He just doesn't want to. He still hates himself. He still doesn't want to change how he looks. He's not happy how he looks. He doesn't want to start maybe a new business, maybe find a new passion. He doesn't have any passions, whatever. I might be exaggerating a bit. I hope I don't touch any stigmas that you guys are sensitive towards. And if it is the case, I'm really sorry. But you see how there's kind of like a line of improvement that he could go from, okay, maybe I'm a bit chubby, I'm a bit fat, I could go to the gym, I could look better, I could appreciate my own body, you know. You could do that as a step. You could also identify that he's been spending too much time playing video games or whatever. He could stop doing that and invest his time in maybe starting his own business. Maybe playing and picking up a new sport. Discovering and exploring new groups of friends. So like, if that person doesn't change without a goal and doesn't constantly reevaluate himself and say, am I really getting close to what I want? He just won't get there, right? So it's hard to do, but he's being and kind of like puts you down too, right? Because it's very hard to admit, oh my God, I just feel really bad about myself. Oh my God, whatever, I'm such a loser. Oh my God, I just haven't accomplished anything with myself. It's very hard to say that and admit it. But once you do, and you have enough motivation and a target, you can overcome that and become better as a person and get closer to your goal. So if to approach that same situation with intense realism is what I just told you, is seeing the problem, accepting the problem, and finding the small steps of how to get to the goal. Of improving yourself overall and just finding the best version of yourself and feeling happy with yourself. And then attraction, girls, whatever, money, that comes like later and it will come almost like when you're not looking for it, as a consequence of you doing what you love and you loving yourself. And you finding and knowing who you are. So now I did the rich example, the kind of like attraction, personality example, or insecurities example. I do these videos impromptu, so I'm thinking of another example before going into research. I'll go into research now. I'm not thinking of anything else for now. But the thing about research is, when you do the whole intense realism and versus delusion thing, and it's very hard to admit that when you're coming from a university no one knows, which might be your case. You're coming from a university no one knows, in a country anyone barely knows how the grading system works. However, it's very hard to admit yourself and say, I'm fucked. Because that's what you are. It's like, literally, you are fucked. It's so hard to go from there and see that when you apply to a school, you might actually deserve it. Say you do deserve, because you're an extremely good applicant, you have awesome grades or whatever. Let's just limit it to grades for now. You have awesome grades and you apply to, let's say, MIT. These guys are going to see your application and say, alright, this guy, I haven't heard of his university, I don't know where he's, like, I barely knew about this country. I don't know the grading system. The rec letters are from professors who don't have PhDs. Should I accept this guy? I mean, he's smart, but then again, another 1,000 people here are also smart. So, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm pretty sure he'll get into another good school, alright. Rejected. Rejected, okay. It's happened to me, might happen to you. Hopefully not. That's happened to, like, almost everyone. Failing is necessary. You won't get into all the schools you want to. That's why people might attend schools. But anyway, like, the delusional approach would be, alright, you know what? Because I'm the best in my school, I'm just gonna get in, like, I'm just gonna own it at Caltech. They're gonna accept me, like, in one. And you'd be surprised by how often you see this happen, like how people just, like, talk about that in certain schools, and they just overestimate how valuable they are, and they think that because they're number one in their class, and they're going to be number one in any other university you go. And because they're number one in their university, they're going to be number one in another place. No, that's not true. And the thing is, you have to be realist in that sense of saying, so for creating the edge, right, in the application, what is your edge? Someone delusional would say, oh no, my edge is my grades, right? And that's it. And that's everything I have. It's like, enough said, I don't have anything else to prove. They know that I'm the best, you know, blah, blah, blah. That's like delusional. Someone who would see the problem and they know that they're fucked, that they're screwed, who would see the problem and kind of process it and say, alright, I'm in a school no one knows, no one's heard about. This happened to me, for example. I'm in a school no one's heard about, no one knows the grading system. The professors don't have PhDs. How do I get out of here and have, like, an application committee that's like review my application and say, okay, this guy is worthy. So a whole thinking process comes from there, and I eventually found out about internships. We'll talk about that later in another video. I said, okay, I have to do an internship. So even if a professor here says I'm the best they've ever seen in their entire life, well, I mean, it's just Peru, right? And if I do an internship with a professor that has a really good position at a university, and if she says I did a really good job, then that weighs a lot more, right? She could say, oh, you know, the student has performed better or even at par as my grad students in doing research and blah, 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 blah. He has successfully published this paper, or has successfully submitted this paper, or has worked on this project and has finished this preprint, blah, blah, blah. But that's the thing, right? Like, you have to, like, look for, instead of saying with, people confuse that intense realism is like putting a barrier on yourself and saying, no, this is impossible, I'll never do it. It's like, no, it's like observing the problem as difficult as it is and finding an alternative solution that is very hard to see, but it's doable. So that's like, internship is one thing. Another thing is finding professors who actually do have, in my case, I had to find like 2 or 3 professors who actually did have PhDs. I found 2 in my school that had PhDs, and they gave me 2 recommendations. The recommendation was from a professor at UCSB where I interned before, and that was pretty much like my edge to get in, because he was also in the committee for like acceptance in this new program. So that's like kind of one of the options. Another option is what other stuff have you done besides studying, right? Has this person, maybe have you created the maybe artificial intelligence club? Have you created this new field, new neuroeconomics club and research group, or whatever? Maybe something in industrial design. I don't know, but something new, right? That like kind of gives you an edge. And besides creating the club, what have you done in the club? Have you like mentored other students? Have you talked to them? Have you guys engaged in research projects? Have you guys won research awards or contests at a national or international level? And all this, you should eventually write this too, right, in your CV or in your application or in your cover letter. But other stuff besides grades can also help you, and that's the intense realist approach. Now, besides intense realism for applying to grad school, I also use it as a way of benchmarking myself with other students. So what I did sometimes was I'm a big fan of the Vision group at MIT, and I just go there and download all the vitae, like the CVs of the grad students there, and I just sit down and analyze, read them, and say, okay, this guy, what did he do? Where was he at when he applied to MIT, right? How many publications did he have? What were his grades? Maybe who were his references? What professor did he work with? How long has he been in research? What were any prizes or honors he's received? What school did he go to? So those are the factors, like read them and kind of like see them and see if you can find a pattern and say, oh wow, like these 2 or 3 guys had at least 2 publications. Again, intense realism. How many publications do I have? 0. Time to, put your hand like over your heart and like ask yourself, if I apply to MIT and I know that everyone else has 2 publications and I have 0, do I have a fair chance to get in? Delusional? Yes. Intense realism? No. Okay. Now, what is the solution? Intense realism is you don't have 2 publications, you have to work, you have to do internships, you have to research to get those 2 publications before applying, right? What is the solution for delusion? Once you got rejected, you'll just like bitch about it and say, oh no, like screw those guys. I'll have my revenge. One day I'll be famous and successful and I'll laugh at them because they rejected me or whatever. So you kind of like have to be careful. And as I said, once more, just be very analytic and focus on how hard something is, but don't let that be a barrier for you. So I like to bring up well, see how I'm in the time right now. Alan, what time is it? It is 5:59. No, he doesn't have a voice yet. That'd be pretty cool. I think I have maybe like 5 more minutes. I had a friend, so in my case it was like we were a class of maybe 35 roboticists, whatever, or mechatronics engineers, and most of them wanted to stay in Peru, but there were 3 of us who wanted like do the leap of faith and like go move to America, live the American dream. And I was second in my class or third. I mean, at the end I graduated first because I kind of like skipped a year or took 1 more year because I did an internship at UCSB. But the legit ranking I think was like third or whatever. Anyway, like the 3 top students, me and like 2 other friends, we wanted to go and we kind of worked and helped with each other. Please do not become an enemy of your peers. That's the worst thing you can do. If you think you're going to be greedy and because you're greedy you're going to get into, I don't know, Stanford or whatever by not telling everyone else what you're doing, no, wrong. You'll fail. Because if you're at that stage, it really means that you're not secure about how good you are. If you're really good at what you are, like what you want, even if you tell everyone or anyone, you'll still accomplish what you want to do. And it's actually better because they'll help you too. And there's going to be a constant feedback between the 3 of you guys or how many of you guys are. So anyway, the 3 of us helped each other out on getting internships and deciding where to go. And at the end, the 3 of us started grad school at the same time. One of my friends is at Harvard now. He's from my same university and year. And another one's at Brown. And he's doing brain-machine interface, and the first one's at complex systems, I think like biology or computational biology at Harvard. And I'm doing dynamical neuroscience at UCSB. And what's interesting is that the three of us actually got into like our ideal place. I mean, I think almost everyone wants to get into whatever, Carnegie Mellon for robotics, or like MIT for electrical engineering, or whatever, Stanford for med school maybe. I'm going to talk about deciding between schools in another video, but I'm so thankful that I got into this school because it is ideally like where I fit in, and it just boosts my productivity so much. And my other friends also feel the same way. They feel identified with their school too. So it's not something impossible, right? We were like 3 kids from like a random school in Peru that no one knows, and we did that. And I'll talk about how we kind of like bypassed the system in some other videos, but it's doable. But to do it, we weren't delusional. We weren't like thinking that, oh, okay, you know what, summa cum laude, whatever, the 3 of us, we got this. We'll just apply. We got all A's and we'll get in. I mean, no, you won't get in if you just have all A's. You have to do other stuff too. So please, in anything you do, just try to be very realist. Try to analyze a problem how it is. Don't put it on the pedestal, or don't like underestimate it. Kind of like see it as hard as it is in anything you do in life. Even if it's not research, like even if you're applying this video like not for research, but just kind of concentrate on and decompose the problem in small steps to see how you can actually get there, and actually take the time and effort in doing it. Because the difference between people who get there and don't isn't that some people didn't figure out the steps. I mean, the steps really aren't really that hard to figure out. In the 3 cases I mentioned, they're really not that hard. What's hard is to take the time and to sacrifice stuff in life to actually overcome each obstacle and eventually get you where you want to be. So yeah, that concludes this large segment. I hope I didn't go over 30 minutes. And any more questions or comments or whatever, I'll happily answer them below. Alright, see you guys.